So now that you've learned how to schedule an existing patient, we're going to move on to scheduling a new patient appointment. Just like with an existing patient, we're going to double click anywhere on the schedule that is an open time. So I'm going to double click, and again it pulls up our patient search criteria box. Now, anytime a patient calls in to schedule as a new patient, you always want to search for them in our records anyways. We've been open for a really long time, and sometimes a patient came in, let's say 5 or more years ago, and they came in just once, and they totally forgot about it after. And then they call in to schedule their new appointment, and they're like, no, I've never been there before, and then we end up creating a whole new file for them. What ends up happening is we have 2 files, and it gets kind of confusing. So long story short, just always make sure to search for new patients in our records anyways. So the first thing I would ask for again is the patient's date of birth. So let's say our new patient's date of birth is February 7th, 1996. So we're going to enter that into our search box. Now we're going to ask for the patient's first and last name. So let's say their first name is Harry and their last name is Potter. We don't see a Harry Potter anywhere in our patients, so we can now schedule them as a new patient. So we're going to come down to new patient, and this is going to open up the enter new patient information box. We already know their first and last name because we asked them for it when we searched for them in our records. So we're going to enter the last name, Potter. First name is Harry. Now we want to ask them what the best phone number to reach them at is. So let's say it's 801-747-8000. Now when you come to the address, you can just put an X for the time being. We can get that when they come in and fill out their paperwork and put their address down. Now the referred by you always want to get while you have the patient on the phone. The easiest way to do this is to ask them who we can thank for referring them. So let's say Harry says he heard about us from his insurance carrier. This is the best case scenario because then they're going to answer for you who their insurance carrier is. So let's come down to doctor/other and hit OK. We would then ask who their insurance carrier is, so let's say it's Dental Select. You can either search by the name and hit the double arrows, or you can scroll down until you find it. So as you can see, under this search criteria, we have doctor's offices, insurance companies, let's see, we have Google available on here as well. If we had selected patient rather than the doctor/other, that would be if they were referred by a patient of record. So I found Dental Select, and I'm going to hit OK. Now that is entered in who this patient was referred by. Once we hit OK, that's going to create the appointment for us. The first thing that we have to change in the appointment is the provider. This is the ID that affects the color of the appointment, and it must match either the provider that they are seeing or what kind of patient they are. So anytime you have a new patient, the ID is going to be Newp. If they were an existing patient, the provider ID would match whatever doctor they were seeing. So we have entered Newp. That stands for new patient. If you ever forget that, if you hit the double arrows, Newp always shows up in our select provider box. Now, the next thing we're going to do is select the multi-code again. So we're going to come to miscellaneous, and again we're going to scroll all the way down and select multi-codes. Now we know that Harry has private insurance, so we're going to scroll down until we see the group of P's. Okay, so I see the group of P's. The first one is a child, and Harry's actually an adult. So we're going to come down to adult. I've selected the P for private insurance, NP as new patient, and of course an adult. And I'm going to hit OK. Again, this has auto-populated the description. The $15 that auto-populates is for fluoride varnish. Almost all insurance companies stop covering fluoride varnish for patients once they're 16 years old. Some don't even cover it for patients under 16. So we charge a really low rate of $15. Because he is a new patient, we don't have to look for a past due balance. So I'm just going to put FB for fluoride varnish after the $15 so that people know what it's for. Now, the next thing that we have to do is we're going to come down to the notes section in the appointment. This is where you're going to enter in the patient's insurance information. So let's say we already know that he has Dental Select. So we're going to write Dental Select. The next thing we're going to do is ask the patient who the subscriber on the insurance is. So that can either be, the patient can be the subscriber on the insurance, or if they're a dependent, it could either be like their parent or their wife or husband who is the subscriber. So let's say Harry is a subscriber on his insurance. What we're going to do is put sub is patient. That means the subscriber is patient. And then I'm also going to put his date of birth here. At this point, you may have forgotten it when we asked him earlier, so you can always say, "Can I get your date of birth again?" and enter it in. Now, the next line, you want to enter in the ID number. That can either be listed as a member ID, subscriber ID, or some insurances actually use the Social Security. So I would just ask if they have their card available and to read off whatever the ID number is provided on that card. So let's say Harry's was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we would ask him what the group ID is. That is also listed on the member's ID card. Most insurances have a group plan ID, but there are rare occasions where some don't. So if the patient says they can't find it on their card, no problem, it's okay. We'll be able to make it work anyways. So under group ID, let's say Harry Potter told us 1, 2, 3 for the group ID. The last thing that you need is the insurance's phone number. This is always provided on the insurance card. Mostly it's on the back of the card, but sometimes it's also on the front. So we're going to write insurance phone number, and let's say it was 801-495-3000. Now it's really important that you put this information in the notes, because if you see up here, where it usually says patient info, it now says new patient info. And when we select that, it doesn't open the patient's family file for us. That's because we still have to create a family file for them, which typically can be done once you're off the phone with the patient. But if you haven't put this information in the notes, you're not going to have a date of birth entered on the family file, and you're going to lose their insurance information. So write down to always remember to put the insurance information in the notes, including the patient's date of birth. So we're going to pinboard our appointment. This is going to allow us again to identify an available appointment time on the schedule. So let's stay on this day and say Harry decided he wanted to be seen on Thursday, June 22nd. It's a popular day. And let's say he wanted to be seen at the earliest time available that day. So as you can see on our schedule, we have 2 hygienist chairs. That means that we can schedule Harry in either Op 2 or Op 3. He is an hour-long appointment, so we want to make sure that the time we select is an hour long. Now, because Harry said he wanted the earliest appointment available that day, that would be a 1 p.m. But if you remember, in the last video, we stated that we wanted to schedule appointments close to each other in operatories. If we schedule Harry at 1 p.m. in Op 2, that's going to make this hygienist have a 3-hour gap until her next patient. So Because there's a patient scheduled in Op 3 at 1:20 p.m., I would offer the 2 p.m. in Op 3 to Harry. So let's say Harry said that was okay. Again, we're going to drag that appointment and put it in the 2 p.m. slot in Op 3. Now we need to create his family file. So we're going to come up to the Family File tab and select that. It's going to open the last family file that you had open for an existing patient. That's okay. Just come up to File and select New Patient with Appointment, and it's already going to have the Create New Family selected for you. So all you have to do is hit OK. This is going to auto-populate the information we have already entered in for Harry, and we're just going to have to go through and enter in some additional things. So as you can see, we have his first name and last name. The next thing we want to make sure is that the patient is entered in as a patient, that his sex is correct, so he is a male, and that his marital status is correct. We actually don't know whether Harry is single or married, and that's okay. We can wait until he comes in and fills out his paperwork to change it if needed. The most vital time to change this is when you're entering in a patient that is a child. We don't want the child to be listed as single, so you would come down and select child instead. But we're just going to leave Harry's at single for now. Now, remember how I said we wanted to make sure to put that date of birth in the notes? At this point, I've already forgotten what the date of birth was. So I'm super happy that I remembered to put it in the notes. So we're going to come back to the appointment and double click. And I can see here 2/7 of 1996 is his date of birth. So if I select the family file again, I'm going to come back and enter that date of birth in. Now, we are going to enter in the address and email address at the time of the appointment when they fill out their paperwork. The next thing that we want to do is change the provider ID. As you can see, it has auto-populated the provider ID to new patient. That's because we put new patient as a provider ID in the appointment, which is correct. But the family file provider ID needs to match the provider that they are being scheduled with. So let's go back to our appointment book view to see who we scheduled Harry with. So I'm going to come back over here and select OK. If you look in the blocks, they list what doctor is being scheduled that day. So this day is Dr. Hamblin. His name is in every block. That means we're going to enter in Dr. Hamblin's ID in Harry's family file. So we're going to come up to the double arrows and we're going to type in Ham under last name and hit the double arrows. So we now have Dr. Hamblin's ID and it is the correct clinic, CDP SSL. So I'm going to select that and press OK. I also want to make sure that the clinic is correct. It is under CDP SSL. So now that we have entered in all of the patient's information, we're going to hit OK. So as you can see, we now have his phone number in there. We have the provider ID, his date of birth, and the clinic. Because Harry is under private insurance, you won't have to enter in his insurance information into the family file. The biller will do that. But you do want to change the bill type on the family file to match the insurance that he has. So, because Harry has private insurance, we're going to change this bill type to 3. So it'll always auto-populate to 1, so no matter what, when you create a new family file for a patient, you're going to have to change it. So because Harry has private, we're selecting 3. If he had Medicaid, we would come down to 11 and select 11. So those are the two that you need to remember. 3 is for private insurance, 11 is for Medicaid, and that's for the bill type on the family file. So I'm going to select OK, and we can now see that the bill type is 3. So we've created Harry's family file and entered in all of his insurance information. The last thing that you have to do is put all of that insurance information on an insurance breakdown form. Now, typically in office, these insurance breakdown forms are already printed out and located behind the computer screens. But just for this video purpose, I pulled mine up on Quick Access to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to come down to my Word document and pull up that insurance breakdown. I highlighted all of the points that you will need to fill out as the scheduler. So you're going to enter in today's date and the patient's appointment date. So today would be June 6, 2017, and the appointment date would be June 21st, 2017. Then we're going to come down and we're going to put Harry's name under patient name and his date of birth. Then under the subscriber, all you're going to do is put patient so that the biller knows the patient is the subscriber. Then you're going to come down and enter the insurance company name, which was Dental Select, their phone number, and the patient's ID number and group number. So you'll be really thankful that you entered all of this information into the appointment notes, because then you have it there to access and put onto this form. So after you've filled out this form, you take it to the biller and put it into their inbox. And that is the last thing that you have to do in order to schedule a new patient. So you are ready to go.